Hey guys, welcome back to Mrs. G's Sewing Space. I'm glad you're able to join me today, and I'm also glad to be back on the channel. I know it's been a while since I put a video out, but I have been in school, so it's not like I've forgotten about you guys, and I still respond to comments when I get them. I just haven't been able to upload anything lately because my schedule's been absolutely crazy. But in this particular video, I was trying to make some patches, and so I wanted to share with you guys some of the things that I had made. Now, each of these patches were made in a different way, and you can tell that some of them turned out better than others. It has that white edging around it, and I'll explain that in just a minute. This one's also the same. Turned out really good except for the white edging. This is definitely one of the better ones I made on my embroidery machine, and this right here is just, I put some heat bond on the back of it so that it becomes an iron-on patch. You peel the backing off, and now it's an iron-on patch. So you don't have to sew it, you can just iron it on to whatever. These are my fails. These were done in with a particular technique that I'll talk about in just a minute that I'm not particularly thrilled with. They turned out okay, so there's this one. So this also has heat and bond on it, so I'm gonna peel that off so you can see the edges better. As well as this one. So both of these were done the same way. There you go. So this one and this one was done the same technique. I'm not happy about it because of the edges. I'll get into more details in just a minute, but these are the not so good ones. I'm not particularly thrilled with these. And this, the way it was done, so you can see this one, I'll talk about it in just a second, but these also have the white edges, but for a different reason, and I do not like this. This is not a favorite right here. I'll talk more about that in just a moment, and I'll go into the details on why they turned out and why they didn't turn out, but I just wanted to show you. So the good and the bad and the ugly. I'm not ever going to show you something that I make that's perfect or as best as I can get it every single time. There are failures when you kind of do machine embroidery sometimes, and I'm pretty positive the reason why those didn't turn out so well is because I needed to put a new needle in my machine, but that did not occur to me until after I got done. So I might try it again later on, and if I do, I'll post something somewhere on my social media, either Facebook or Instagram, and let you guys know what it looks like once I change my needle out, if I have time. So anyways, let's get on to the video and I'll explain everything about the patches. Okay, explanation of the patches. So before I get the video started on how I did these techniques, I'm going to tell you there are two techniques that I'm going to share with you. One is creating the embroidery, cutting it out, and then doing a second embroidery on top of water-soluble stabilizer to get the cleaner edges. Now, like I said earlier, I think my machine needed a needle change, but I was kind of doing this in a rush, so I didn't do it. But it ended up being one of the better patches just because you can see the threads that cover the edges. So you can see here the edges that are covered. Here we go. See the edges? They're not, like I said, need a new needle, so it wasn't done perfectly, but it's better than this one. This is the one with a different technique that I used, and I didn't like that so much because it didn't cover the edges as much as I would have liked. But not only was it a different technique, I also did not use water-soluble stabilizer for this one. These two, the reason why they have the white edges or the original canvas still poking out around the edge of the patch is because I was going to show you these two techniques, and then like I said, I got busy, so my machine was running in the background and I just went through the steps as normal. And so it embroidered the entire thing, and I had to go back around and cut the patch out. But I didn't want to get too close to the blue threads, because if I did, I'd snip the blue threads and then everything would come undone. So I got as close as I was willing to, and that's why you have the white ring around here. Now, there are plenty of patches that have the little scraggly ends, the little unwoven shaggy ends that you can use. I see a lot of them on ball caps. It usually says your mama's the best or something like that, or my mama's the best, or best friends forever, and then that's how you get those scraggly edges. You just cut your woven fabric that you've embroidered on, and then you just unravel it so it has that little fringe to it. but I'm okay with this one. I'd put it on a coat. I'd put it on my coat if I wanted to give it to somebody. I don't know if I would do that. Maybe. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. What do you guys think? So, do you guys think it looks awful with that white? I don't think it looks too bad. So for that one and for this one, they were both done the same way by mistake. It was not my intention to do that. I totally did it by mistake, and I'll go up and clean up some of the little scraggly parts there. This one and this one were done the same way, where what I did is I put the patch, I embroidered the patch, and then right before I got to this step where I embroidered the circle on it, I cut the fabric out as close to my die line as possible, but I didn't remove it from my frame. It stayed in my frame. I'll go into more details as we go to do this. It stayed in my frame and embroidered the edges, and it didn't give me as clean as I would have liked. See, it's not as clean as I would have liked. But this one also did not have the water-soluble stabilizer. I think would have been better. It might have cleaned up the edges a little bit, but it didn't do too much. So it's not a technique I would use for a woven fabric. It might have worked better if I had used a felt as a background or as my main fabric to embroider on, but I used a canvas. I just used a regular old canvas that I got from Hobby Lobby or Joann's or wherever, and so it ended up giving me those type of edges. So the ugly, not that it's bad, just ugly. And this, I actually used a black canvas for this one. You can see it poking through right here where it didn't embroider all the way, because I had resized the pattern in my software. So this was a test patch anyways, because I wanted to see how, if I resized it, what it would look like. And now I know it's got spots in here. But this white edge, that was from my tearaway stabilizer. And so if I had a water-soluble stabilizer, it might have worked better. It wouldn't show up so much. But I don't know. I might try that again later when I want to do patches again. And then this one, this ended up being the better one. Like I said, my needle was getting dull by this point, and so some of my white thread ended up showing through, but it ended up being way better. This was done on a water-soluble stabilizer, and I also did this on a white, or the canvas, the white canvas, so you can't see those spots like you can do in the black one. But anyways, so water-soluble stabilizer, not water-soluble stabilizer. I cut this one out and did a second framing for this one. I did not on this one, and you can tell the differences other than the crappy embroidery, because I decided to resize my actual embroidery in my software. But other than that, I definitely like this one better. These aren't too bad depending on what you want to do with them. I mean, I'd still put them on a coat. This one, that just didn't turn out very well at all. It's just crap. It's not nice and clean on the edges at all, and it's just, yeah, it is just crap. But I'm not going to get rid of them. I always use them, so I'll probably sew it or iron it onto something somewhere along in my life, and there you go. I'll label it that way. So something I did want to add here. Some things that I wanted to talk to you guys about when I was doing my machine embroidery. I used 3 different kinds of stabilizer. So let's put these aside for a moment. I used what's called tearaway stabilizer. It's like a piece of paper. See, like this. It's stiff, it's scratchy, it's like a piece of paper, but it easily tears like this. I'm going to use this, so I'm like, see, it just easily tears away. So I don't have to worry about cutting it off, because whatever I embroider on here will just tear right out. And normally, if you're embroidering on a shirt or something, anything that's left over behind the embroidery, like back in here, will soften up over time. If it gets washed on the multiple, it'll soften up, and it won't be itchy or scratchy after it gets washed. It might be itchy and scratchy that first time, but after it gets washed, you'll be fine, and you won't even feel it anymore. It'll soften up. This one is called cutaway. It's much softer. It's not as stiff. It's very soft, and it has less body. See, as you can tell, as this one's kind of stiff, this one's not. It's very flowy, kind of. It's called a cutaway because you can't tear it, so I can't tear it at all. I would have to cut it in order to get it out of my, in order to get the stabilizer off, which is why I kind of like this one for the machine embroidery. But when I layered up my hoops, I did tearaway on the back, I did cutaway as my main stabilizer that I would want the patch on because it gives it strength, is called water soluble stabilizer. I have two different kinds here. This is a Sulky brand. I took the paper out, but it's Sulky. What water soluble stabilizer is, it's a dissolvable plastic that you can put on your embroideries, and then it melts away with water. So it's this nice thick plastic. This is the expensive stuff. The brand name is Sulky, S-U-L-K-Y. But you can also buy it by the yard at Joann's, which is here. So I've got this. How wide is it? It's about 20 inches wide. It's not as strong. It has a bumpy texture on one side and it's smooth on the other. But here, doesn't tear easy, as you can see. But it does. But let's see how. So when you have an embroidery and you use a water-soluble stabilizer, it dissolves in water. So look here, we'll dissolve it in water. All you have to do is swish it around. If you throw it in the washer and dryer, it will dissolve and disappear. I don't know what it's made of. I don't know how it's made or anything like that. See how it's turning slimy and yucky? You give your embroideries a good wash, soap and water, dry them, and it will no longer be there by the time everything gets washed. Everything's dissolved and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So, let's get rid of that. And go yap at my dog because he's barking in the background. It leaves a slimy texture on your fingers. Go wash. Alright, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go wash my hands. Okay, now that we talked about stabilizer, let's go on to the techniques and making our patches. Okay, so right here I'm showing you how to hoop the fabric. I am using a spray adhesive and I'm using my patches templates to shield my camera because I don't want spray adhesive all over it. And I'm spraying the cutaway stabilizer and laying it onto the canvas, flattening it out, making sure there are no wrinkles anywhere, to be able to strengthen the fabric as it is embroidered. Now in the upper left hand corner you see all the shapes there on the fabric. That is just the die lines for the package of patches that I have. I had the link in a prior video and I'll add it to this one as well. I just needed a visual to be able to see how big the patches are and what they look like, so in the future I know which ones to choose for future purposes. So now I'm going to take that fabric that is glued together. I lay down my tearaway stabilizer and then my canvas with the glued on cutaway stabilizer into the hoop, and I'm pressing the top frame into place. Now as I'm doing this, as you see, it's hard to do. I try not to loosen my screws too much. Sometimes I have to, just because I don't want to screw and unscrew everything. It's a pain in the butt. If I can keep it about the same, then it's easier just to press it in all the time. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes your fabric is just too thick and you don't have a choice. But I'm pressing the top frame in, and then I'm also making sure that my corners are in all the way and the fabric is nice and tight, that there are no wrinkles, and I also tighten up my frame. Now I'm also pushing the inner frame out just a smidge out the bottom. So you want the outer frame to be a little higher up and the frame on the top to be a little lower when you do your embroidery, because you don't want both frames running across the base where you are embroidering at. You just need just like a millimeter, not that much. You just want the fabric itself touching and not the frame. So the first technique I'm going to show you is I'm cutting out the patch through the canvas and through the cutaway stabilizer, but not through the tearaway stabilizer. So this is something I saw on YouTube, and I'm going to try to find that link again, and I'll link it down in the description box of what he did. Now, the person I saw this from, he used a felt fabric and he didn't use a woven fabric. So canvas is a woven fabric, and I think the edges came out better that way. So I might try that again with a felt background instead. So you see me here, I'm just trimming away as close as I can get to that die line, so that when it's embroidered over the edges should be hidden underneath. It didn't work out that way, but it should be. And so I'm trying to trim it up as much as possible, making sure there are no crazy threads, no weird angles, trying to get as close to that die line without going through that tearaway stabilizer, so that it's all still hooped up and ready to go. Now in this quick video you can see here that's the final embroidery going around the edges, but it's not perfect by any means. And I don't know if it's because it was a woven fabric, because I didn't cut it cleanly enough. I thought I did, but I might not have. So you can see bits and pieces popping out of that. So while this technique might work, it may not work for everything, and we'll have to continue on. Here you see me pulling out some water-soluble stabilizer. I talked to you about that at the beginning of the video, so this is what this is. This is that thicker, kind of a plasticky, water-dissolvable stabilizer. So I'm just going to hoop my fabric this way. So the water-soluble stabilizer goes in first. I hoop it by itself, and then I cut out my patch that I've already embroidered almost to the last stage. The only stage that needs to be embroidered now is the final border that goes around it, enclosing the patch. I make sure it's tight, that it's as wrinkle-free as I can possibly get it, so that it needs to be tight like a drum in order for this to work properly. Okay, so here is the patch still on the water-soluble stabilizer. I'm about to remove it, and you can see how it just easily comes apart once you take it out of the hoop. So there's a MGSS patch, it pops right out of that tearaway stabilizer. More than likely, when you pull it out of your machine, it'll be just ready to come out anyways. Okay, so here is the patch that I did mistakenly. Ran it all the way through the process, all the way to the end, and didn't turn it into a patch, but I am now. So what I'm doing, I don't have the nerve to cut any closer than what I'm already cutting because I really do not want to snip any of those blue threads. The whole thing will unravel and it'll just be awful looking. So there we go, and now I'm just going to clean up those edges as well. Okay, so right now I am ironing on my Heat and Bond, and that's what it's called. It's Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. I use it in particular for a lot of things, but for these patches, it works really well in these patches. And it's another adhesive, an iron-on adhesive. I just use it, ironed it on the back of the patches, and then when it's time to iron the patches onto my sweater or wherever I'm going to use them, I'd peel off the backing and then just iron them on. Make sure you hold it down, follow the directions on the Heat and Bond to get a good grip. Hey guys, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you like and subscribe and give a thumbs up to this channel. Let me tell you, giving likes to my videos helps me get out there to everybody else so that I can get my videos seen. It's the best way to support me without spending money. Well, not that I have anything set up to spend money with anyways, but you know, your support is always helpful to me. I hope you enjoyed everything. I hope you understood everything. If not, throw comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, or if you have techniques that you like to use when you make your patches, and we can share with the rest of our community. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Boom.